Welcome to Playing the Culture Game. In this series, we dive deep into interesting people and culture topics with very interesting guests, all whilst playing a game of some sorts. And today, my very interesting guest is Rory McGrory, I was about to say. Ryan McGrory. I don't know if you've ever had that one before.
I get it every day, actually.
Every day.
I was going to say offline, try not to say Rory, but I've said that a few times and I think it just incepts it into people's head. So there you are. There's no way of avoiding it. There's no way of avoiding it.
There's no way of avoiding it. You tell people, you don't tell people, it happens.
I'll give you a clue. My name's on the bottom of the screen just if you want to have a...
I should really... Very good. At least it's me making the first fail of the episode, not you.
Good. That's what a way to make your guests feel at ease. I know. Feel free to make mistakes. It's just all good.
Say my name wrong, say anything. It's... so it's awesome to have Ryan on. Ryan is... it's very hard because it's multifaceted skill sets, but I will kind of say employee experience is the overarching banner of all the things that you've got expertise in, and in fact founder of Exsona, and so you work with a range of businesses to look at employee experience and well-being, employee engagement, all those cool things. And I'm looking forward to chatting to Ryan today about how we measure the impact of people and culture initiatives. Ryan, great to have you on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
and it's nice that I can reciprocate. You were on a podcast of mine a few months ago, and I've been desperate to come on and chat with you. So thanks.
No, well, thank you so much for having me on yours. I really enjoyed that chat. So I thought let's get a round two going. But this time, have you in the hot seat? You asked very good questions. So I will, at least if I get half the caliber of questions you asked today, I think we'll be doing we'll have a good conversation. I'll be doing a good job.
That's very nice. But yeah.
Now, what I love doing at the start of these is for the audience to get to know you, and also for me to get to know you a little bit better. Couple of questions, and the first one I'd like to start with is just any highlights that you've had recently, so in the last couple of weeks, and they can be personal, professional, anywhere in between.
I suppose the biggest highlight is recent weeks. I'm stretching, but I suppose 3 months ago I had a baby, so that's pretty cool. It added to the family. Our second daughter, Nina Roisin. So that's been a highlight of the year.
Amazing,
for sure.
And how have the first few months of... You've got a few things to juggle with the second child, so the slotting the second child in, and the first child's jostling for position. How's that all gone? Is that...
It's gone pretty good, actually. I mean, touch wood, still early days, but yeah, she's been welcomed into the family, open arms from everybody. There hasn't been a lot of tension there, which has been kind of cool. And yeah, just super happy to have her home. And I suppose what's been a real bonus for me is being around. I love pretty flexible life in terms of work-life balance and where that is. And I mean, she might even feature as a guest on this podcast, actually, because she's about two rooms away. So you might hear her if she wants to contribute. You'll probably hear.
If she disagrees with something you say, she's going to be like, nah.
Oh, gee, she wouldn't shut up, yeah. If that was the case.
Awesome. We've got a live critique in the audience. That's brilliant to hear.
A heckler.
Heckler, yeah. And how are you finding it the second time around in terms of, obviously the first time it's brand new, you learn a whole bunch of new things. How is are you finding stuff translating across? Are you having to relearn stuff? How have you found the process of number two?
I mean, there's definitely a scale of shitting yourself, and I'd say I'm not as far up that scale as I was the first time around. I've been having to relearn a lot of things and surprising myself with, I remember this, and I do know this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's still scary, but less scary than the last time. And things have been going really cool, man. Like I think when things are less scary, you're able to enjoy things differently. So that's been kind of interesting. But yeah, it's been good, man. I
love that way of putting it, when it's kind of there's less fear because you're kind of a bit more your understanding of what's coming up, and that way you can kind of enjoy certain things more. That's pretty cool. And then how are you with the juggling of the two versus one? How's that process going?
Oh jeez, yeah. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. So Nina, our youngest, was born like really small, healthy, super healthy, but really small. And I think the first week that she was born, we kind of heard from the hospital and the doctor was that, you know, it's the worst ever season it's been for flu, for coronavirus in terms of number of people getting it, and whoop and cough being around. I'm like, oh jeez. So we ended up just bringing our 4-year-old out of kindergarten and staying at home with us for like 6-7 weeks to kind of avoid the inevitable germs coming home. So that ended up working really well. But geez, it was a bit of tough time, because kind of juggling everything. It was again being like in lockdown, I suppose. In a way, it's self-imposed lockdown, so a little easier to manage than being told what to do. But
we've got a bit of choice over it. You're like, we're deciding to stay inside.
It's subtly different, and then maybe we're kind of a bit more resilient this time around as well. It was good, man. It's tough but good. From everyone I speak to, that's just the kind of overall analogy of parenthood. It's tough and good.
Tough but good. Yeah, steep learning curve. Yeah. Awesome. So pleased for you, and so glad you're kind of enjoying the flexibility and all of that as well. Just that being able to be as present as possible. It's awesome. So cool to hear. The next question I've got for you is from a game called Quink. So I'm going to draw a question, and I'll ask you the question, and you may love the question, you may hate the question, and if you don't like the question, feel free to ask for a redraw, and we'll get you a different question. And the question I've got for you is: what is something you are looking forward to doing in the context of hobbies, interest, and personal development?
This is good, because I actually signed up for something just the other day. It's a thing called Stoic Week. So I've been getting into philosophy, I think, in the last 6 or 7 years. Yeah. And I've kind of been, I think I've been reading an awful lot on like Stoicism, and I've been taking it into everyday practice. But in terms of a formal way, there's a thing called like Stoic Week, which is a kind of a development course that you kind of go on, and I've just signed up for that. So I'm looking forward to kind of developing a bit of discipline around how I practice Stoicism.
Oh wow! Okay, so what does that look like? What's the week? What does the week entail? What do you kind of? Yeah,
I guess a lot of simple meditation, from what I can gather. So I did the kind of the first intro to the course, and there's like a morning, lunchtime, and the evening meditation that you do. It's a lot of reflection and a lot of preparation for the next day. So I like Stoicism because it's a really kind of practical philosophy. It talks less about the theory and more about the practice, which I kind of enjoy. So it's really about trying to make things a bit more simpler and give yourself a stronger or a better viewpoint or a lens to which to look through things that happen to you, or things that have happened to you, or things that are going to happen to you. So I kind of like that, because I've been reading it for a long while, and now it's like I got a week that's just kind of obsessive in its nature in terms of building some discipline around some practices. So yeah.
And is it fully immersive? Are you going somewhere to do it? Do you do it from home? How does that work?
I'm doing it from home, so it's online. I would love to go to the Stoa in Greece. That'd be quite kind of nice to go and do it in Athens. Maybe one day, if I can do this week at home, then maybe I can build up to going to Athens and doing it in person. But it's at home, a little bit online, bit of fun, see what happens, that type of thing.
Amazing. So I think it's so cool to carve out the time to focus on just one thing and go really deep for a week, and especially if it's something you've been interested in for a wee while. And then what are you hoping to, if it's been a successful week, what does that kind of look like if you're coming out of it? What are you hoping to attain?
Just a bit more discipline, I think, around it. I know it seems like an odd thing to try and get out of a kind of living like a philosopher for a week. I kind of really aware of the kind of practices, and I think I just need a kick in the arse, to be honest. So like a week worth of kind of immersive learning can maybe give you a really good kick in the arse to then make it part of your daily practice, and less so of a kind of casual observer. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you're hoping you go on there and that it just sets the trajectory, sets you up for living it more frequently and daily going forward.
Yeah, I suppose kind of like, eating and exercising. We all know the principles of it. We kind of know what it is, and it's just about being a bit more disciplined and a bit more intentional with your actions, which hopefully this can give me. So let's see. Next time you see me, I might be super zen and on some sort of plane that you've never before seen.
Never seen you on before. Look forward to hearing how it goes. I think I agree. Some of those things, some of those immersive experiences, just act as a little bit of a circuit breaker and help us, or an accelerator. They get us on a path that we're hoping to go further on. So it's cool to hear. I can't wait to hear some of your reflections from the experience as well. Amazing. What we'll do now is we'll gently transition into talking about the topic and the game. Now, we're going to be playing virtual pool, so this is going to be pretty cool. I'm used to playing pool around a physical table, so also to play some digital pool with you. And what we're going to be doing is playing, and at the end, there's probably going to be a winner or a loser. I think we'll probably get through a few games. I think virtual pool is, well, it depends how good you are at real pool, but for me, virtual pool is much easier than real pool. I sink a lot more balls. So we might get through a few games, and based on the winner, we will be donating some money to charity. So in the game, we'll donate money to charity, whether you win or lose. If you lose, we'll donate $75 to the charity of your choosing, and if you win, we'll double that and pop in $150 to the charity of your choosing. Yes,
amazing.
So it's all on you.
Yeah, jeez, all right.
And from what I understand, the charity of your choosing is PTSD Dogs. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So it was actually a friend who was telling me about this. And just sounds like an amazing charity. So I started to follow them after that. They find dogs that need rehoming, and then train them so that they can go to help first responders as well. So it's kind of amazing service that does. Everyone's a winner. There are many different winners, and all of those kind of purposeful. So trying to help two or more problems, which I like. They sound like an amazing charity. I'd suggest you go check them out because they're doing some amazing stuff. So let's hope we can give them $150. I'd be delighted with that.
That's awesome. I love it, Ryan. That's So thanks for picking the charity. Sounds like doing really really meaningful, impactful work. And as you say, looking at it from there's wins from a couple of different perspectives. That's awesome. So what we're going to do now is going to bounce into pool, so that might just take a second to set up.
I'm playing a familiar game, but I don't think I've ever played... Oh, geez, it must have been 14 or so since the last time I played pool without a beer.
Okay.
Feel
free. Well, you look like you had a nice espresso. You were...
I did, yeah. Exactly. I needed something to buzz me up for this.
For this,
yeah. For this game. So, we've removed alcohol. Let's see if I'm still as good.
Still as good. Well, we'll see. We got a bit of a... So it looks like I'm kicking things off with a break and the first question. So the first question I like starting with is, you could have talked about any topic in the world today. And I think there's a lot of things that interest you, but we've kind of talking about measuring the impact of, people and culture initiatives. So why have you chosen this topic for today?
I think it's probably the thing that's helped me most in my career. To be honest, actually, just caring about measuring stuff first, and then actually trying my hardest to measure things so I can show the value or the return on investment. So something that's really kind of worked well for me, and it's probably the thing I get asked most about. When I've been speaking at conferences or wherever I've been, wherever I've been. That's why. I'm trying to figure out how to actually hit a shot here.
Yeah, I think you just click and you drag back.
Right click?
Left click, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Left click, drag back, and it does do that.
I think I moved the white ball, about 1 millimeter on my screen. So there you go. And I realised there was a drag back function. I had it all lined up.
Oh, you had the shot lined up.
Two shots to you, I think.
Is it two shots?
Is that how it works?
Yeah, I don't even know. Was it a foul?
Yep.
So this is at least the computers take. You know, whenever you play pool, everyone's got their own rules, and at least the computer's taking care of this. So we could just whatever the computer tells us, we can do.
Oh, nice, well done.
In real life, I wouldn't have pulled that shot. So it sounds like it's something through your career you've managed to build a specialization around this, or it's been something you've innately, or for whatever reason, you've had an interest in this area. What kind of initially drove the interest in the measurement side for you? Did it spurn from anything? Did it spurn from an opportunity, happenstance? How did you land on this being something that was your thing?
A little bit of both. I mean, I arrived into people and culture or a HR role from a marketing, journalism, and PR background. So I was always concerned about kind of perception, behaviour, and I think like effective communication and messaging. So I kind of came from that perspective. And when I arrived in HR, I was working with an insurance company, and of course the language of love in insurance is data. So I was like, well, I'm either going to have to learn how to do this. Am I spots or am I stripes?
Your stripes.
Stripes, right, cool.
I like even with virtual pool, there's still all the, the same questions that you get when you're playing real pool as well. It's like, whose turn is it? What are we doing? Who's spots on stripes?
But to get back to your question, I had to learn if I was going to I think in the first role I was in, I had a really small budget to deliver a health and wellbeing program, and it's like, all right, well, cool. How do I get more budget? How do I influence people? And it was about using data. So how do I change behavior? Use data. How do I influence people? Use data. How do I get more budget? Use data. How do I improve the effectiveness? How do I maybe get a promotion and ask for more money for myself? Well, if I want to prove that I've done something, then I better get really good at this data thing and measuring stuff. And I was around heaps of actuaries, so the environment was really good for learning that. I was around, and I've always thought that you can learn for the price of a coffee in workplaces. You can go up to people and you could pick someone's brain and learn from them as long as you're willing to buy them coffee, and that's right for, I'd say, 90% of people. If you can get their time, if you can give them something, if they're willing to give, and you've got good questions, and you could learn a shitload. And that's what I did. I focused on that, and I got a hell of an education from just sitting down and talking to as many people as possible. And I built my literacy on data by jumping over to people's desks and sitting down and watching them move like whizzes on Excel, and watch them and kind of understand what a data lake is, understand what happens in a warehouse, a data warehouse, and what all these terms mean, and how I can kind of leverage this knowledge from mine and my career's benefit.
That's it's really cool. I like this concept of just because I agree. 90% of people, you just go, hey, shout your coffee. I'm just really interested to just learn and soak up things from you. And so many people are just willing, if there is the you show the curiosity, you ask the right questions, and you just show an interest in what they're doing. People are so happy to share if you just make the initial connection and reach out. It's a great way to deepen knowledge about any topic. And it sounds like you're in the right environment. You're surrounded by actuaries, lots of kind of interest in data and going deep in that side of things. But I love as well your background, no doubt. You mentioned marketing, pretty data orientated profession, journalism, strong level of kind of research and data. So I just love how everything combines together to get you to where you are today.
Yeah, totally. I've definitely got obsessive compulsive tendencies, and it's when I want to learn something, it's a real strength. So I just want to read and consume as much as possible until I feel confident enough to do. So that's, it's been nice being in environments and around people who are willing to share.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that you kicked off by the thing that was almost the catalyst is you mentioned things like how can I get more budget, how can I get a promotion, how can I have more influence, and it all kind of all roads led back to data. So I like just by you explaining it like that. It tells us there's probably a lot of benefits on becoming more data driven and more data orientated. So what do you think stops a lot of people in the people and culture profession from taking this perspective of data first and being more data oriented? Where do you see some of the challenges and barriers for people in our space to do this?
It's a really good question because I do see it as a major challenge. I mean, particularly when you look at the people and culture department or function compared to other functions that exist in the workplace, you would say, arguably we're quite behind. I know there's been a strong a strong play, you might say, of recent times to improve how we monitor and how we deliver. But yeah, it's definitely been a challenge. I think maybe where it comes from is a lot of people are attracted to people and culture roles because they're people and culture people, and that is about understanding the individual, and it is about using your heart more than your head. So I think we're just naturally that way built and inclined. So I think that's a major strength of ours. But like any strength, it can also be a bit of a weakness at times. So I think that's where it comes from. And I think there's a lack of really good examples. I think that's the second thing. So when there are really good examples and when there is a really good blueprint, people are more likely to follow it. And then the third, I think, is just the kind of confidence thing. There's a pattern of what gets you results, and if you're willing to repeat that pattern and you don't break that cycle, then you're less likely to try and leverage something new because you're either less comfortable or it's fearful because it's the unknown. So I think we're starting to actually break this cycle in people and culture, because lots of people I speak to right now, it's kind of top of everyone's mind. How do we measure? How do we prove? How do we show return on investment? Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from elsewhere in the business, because people are now being asked to kind of justify in new, different ways. It's because of the elevation, perhaps, of culture, because of the change in kind of workplace dynamics, because of this new focus on flexibility, and because there is some real people and culture problems right now. Like when it comes to attraction, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to retention, and it's hurting bottom line. And I think people know that. So yeah.
Super interesting. So you feel like right now now more than ever, there's more of a catalyst. There's so many people and culture issues that are impacting organisations. You mentioned, retention, turnover, potential burnout, all of these things that are more prevalent now than before. Plus, we've got additional challenges like trying to figure out what's the right operating model for us. Is it hybrid? So there's lots of things going on where we're like, okay, some data would be pretty cool to have here. And you mentioned maybe part of the challenge is people that gravitate towards the people and culture space. Maybe the data's not the thing that really lights them up. So you mentioned if they had a blueprint, it would be helpful. That people, if they've got a blueprint, that might help us build a bit of confidence here. Talk to me about what could a blueprint look like? What's the, if I'm going, okay, Ryan, I love what you're talking about here. I agree. I'd love to have a bit more influence. I know I'm working with these really important topics, but I'm really struggling to get buy-in. How could I start the process of working with more data? Is it around the collection? Is it around something else that I need to be honing in on, in your opinion?
That's a good question. The way I think about it first is the kind of 3 steps, right? There's first, you have to give a shit. Like I think that's the first thing. You have to care, and you can't teach someone to kind of care. They have to care. And then the next one is giving it a crack.
So when you say they have to care, do you mean they have to care about the the initiatives they're working on? They have to care about data. What's the thing that you feel like is an important predictor of whether someone's going to put the energy into doing this from a care perspective?
Well, both. I feel like you have to care about the outcome of what you're doing. So you have to care about the work. You have to care about its purpose. If you actually want to do it properly, and you're looking for making a start, you have to give a shit about about it in the beginning. Particularly in areas where there isn't a blueprint and you're going to have to rely on some sort of innovation, creativity, or extra effort. I think you have to care. Otherwise, you're going to give up, or you're going to give a half-hearted approach, and it's not going to do you much help. Good shot. I think once you've kind of done that self-assessment and you can tell, what, I actually do care about this, then you can give it a crack.
Yeah, I love that. That's the starting point, though. Is figuring out, do I actually, the whatever I'm looking to measure the impact on, do I actually care about this? Am I really invested in this? And because I think part of the measurement piece is you're measuring it I imagine, so you can track, is it working, is it improving? And if you don't really care that much, why put the effort into the measuring? Yeah, okay, great. So once we've determined our care, you mentioned the next piece is it, then giving it a crack. Talk to me a little bit about what that looks like.
Well, I think it's actually trying hard, putting in the effort, and realizing that if you haven't done it before, it's probably not going to be easy. Even if the steps are, like anything you haven't done before, typically requires a bit of effort, and it means that you have to commit to it. Which kind of leads to the third step is that when you fuck up, and you will, is to figure it out and keep going. Mistakes are going to happen. So that's my kind of 3-step process for trying in the beginning, is to give a shit, give it a crack, and when you make mistakes or when something's broken, then fix it and keep going. And what that might look like, I'll maybe give the example of from a health and wellbeing program. If you're going to start a health and wellbeing program, you kind of have to give a shit. If you're going to start a learning and development program, you're going to have to give a shit. You're going to start anything it is in the people and culture space, you're going to have to care a fair bit, and that's going to look different in different organizations or for different people. But it's got to start by caring. You have to care about the outcomes that you're actually trying to deliver or trying to achieve. And then that helps you once you've found that you care and you actually care about the outcomes, and you start to define them, and then you work out what it'll take to actually measure those things. So if it's well-being that you want to deliver health outcomes, then you're going to have to measure what those health outcomes are, and that's part of giving it a crack. It's like, how is there things that I can measure? Are there things that I would like to measure? Well, work out what you can measure, work out what you would like to measure, and then try to draw a line between those things and the actual data point. And if it doesn't exist, then ideate on can you actually find the data point, and if you can't, then work with what you've got. And of course, nothing is perfect from the beginning, and I think being at ease with that and having a commitment to when things are either tough and they're hard, or when things are broken, are you still gonna commit to doing them? I think it's important.
Awesome. So it's would you suggest then, you mentioned this care aspect quite a lot, because I imagine we put ourselves in the shoes, any people in a culture profession, they've probably got a number of initiatives they're working on at any given time. If I kind of extrapolate what you're saying, do you think a good starting point is maybe picking one of the initiatives that you care about most and starting with that? If care is such a big factor, do you think that's a good way to determine what to start on, or would you look at it through another lens?
I'd look at it through multiple lenses, but definitely the care has got to be up there. I mean, it doesn't really cost anything to start writing things down. So you can write about the things that you have to do and then the things that you're most passionate about or that you care most about. And then you can get to the second step by saying, well, what am I actually trying to achieve with these multiple initiatives? And then how can I measure them? You might actually start with what I like to think of very simply doing an impact and effort analysis. So thinking about all the things you could potentially do, write them down, and then try to plot them on a nice kind of 2x2 grid or 4x4 grid. What's going to give me the highest return, or what's likely to have the highest impact, or what am I most passionate about? And then separately, how difficult will it be to get there? You might find that you do something that's extremely high impact and is actually quite easy for you to deliver, so you have it there. And that I think is about strategy, and there's so many variables that you to think about. Well, what is it about making a start? Is it better to get a run on the board, or is it better to tackle the big hairy problem first? That's that comes down to suitability, timing, what else is happening, what's most important. And the thing that I think gets forgotten about, or rather sits by the wayside far too often, is alignment to business strategy. It's like sometimes we get so passionate because we care about something that we don't think about the collective we, which is the business, and think about what is actually going to make an impact, not just in this project and this siloed initiative over here, which is very meaningful and purposeful. But if you want to think about what has greater meaning, what has greater purpose, is something that does that, is very meaningful and purposeful to you, and is actually going to align to help the business achieve its objectives. And when you're in that land, you tend to get far greater collaboration, far greater support and buy-in. Sometimes you get support in the way of money, and when you celebrate something, then you're not just celebrating alone, saying look what I've done over here. It's like look what we did and look what we're able to do, and that's the promised land. If you can get as many of them as you can on board, then you're winning.
Yeah, I love it.
Unlike me in this frigging game of pool, by the way, you just slaughtered me.
Well, we'll get a chance to have a rematch. So I'm going to just send you across another link, and we can play again, and you can get revenge, or I can really start putting some more runs on the board. So.
Yeah, I'm more of a physics man than a geometry man, so.
So you're like in real life, you're like, oh, I'd be doing much better. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. When I get to think about the aerodynamics, and I think of the speed of the velocity of the table and the spin. Tension points and spin. Yeah, of course. I'm that.
Do you know? I just realised. I think we could put spin on the ball. I think that's a cue ball at the top.
I was lying.
I just realised that. I was like, there must be a way to put spin on the ball. There is.
So there is.
Yeah, I can see what you're doing there. I can see you're trying to put. Yeah. Wow. I'm going to try. Yeah. So I love what you spoke about.
Off to a good start. Just pocketed the white ball.
Yeah. Was that with or without spin?
Yeah.
I like what you're talking about though, because I think we're weighing up multiple things. Yes, caring about something and being invested in that is really important. But we've got to counterbalance that with, how much effort is this thing going to be, and what's the impact of that? And I like that when we talk about something like this, and especially measuring impacts. And maybe it's not something you put yourself in the shoes of. It's not something we've done much before. Then actually maybe we'll want to pick things that we know maybe the data is a bit more readily available. We're not going to have to start really stretching it in terms of how we collect stuff. So looking at effort's important, but ultimately then aligning that back to business strategy, going, well, let's start with things which we know are important to the business, get those runs on the board, and then we can kind of expand things out from there. I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into this measures piece, because I think you mentioned, think about the initiative and then think about the outcomes you hope to. Well, it's giving me the hevo to do the break. Think about the outcomes that you want to achieve. From your experience, let's take the example you used of you're implementing a well-being program. From your experience, what have been some of the ways you've looked at kind of measures to kind of go, okay, what are useful measures to look at? Why are they useful? How easy or hard are they to collect? Do you mind kind of working through a bit of an example of the measurement piece? Because I think, as you mentioned earlier, sometimes we're lacking these examples, and the examples really help get us started.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'll give an example here of what we've done to measure a well-being program. It's probably one of the best and easy examples. The best because we won a shitload of awards. What we done in this was
always nice.
Really good. But the reason why we won awards is because of our approach to actually analysing the effectiveness and the outcomes of the program itself. So we got to prove over time that people were 56% healthier, 6.5% more satisfied with life at the organisation, and 185% more likely to stay with us.
Wow.
So also we got to show that we reduced the risk of chronic health conditions and musculoskeletal conditions in the general population of our people. So it was a cracking programme, and it was really big on our commitment.
Yeah.
But it started with a $5,000 budget, and us just trying to nut out what it is that we wanted to achieve. So because of our approach to analysing and trying to make a difference and really giving a shit and giving it a crack, and
doing all of those things,
and committing to it by continuously improving based off of that kind of approach to analysis, then we were able to do it. But it was really simple in its principles. And I think I've talked to a few people about this, and I wouldn't say they're disappointed by what we did, but they were expecting more sophistication. So I like things that are simple, because simple usually means that it's more likely to be correct, but also it's more likely for to encourage you to actually do the frigging thing, which is
in the first
really
place.
important. Yeah,
and I think there is. attendance, like this is a broad generalization, but I think especially in the people, I think there's a lot of overcomplicating things that don't need to be as complicated as well. So I'm with you here. There's a big value in simplicity, because we know simplicity that still takes a lot of work to get to the point where it is simple. But so I'm with you.
I think so too. And I mean, if we're to pause for a moment on complexity bias, I think business is crippled by complexity bias, and perhaps society is a little bit as well. So complexity bias meaning that people think that the more sophisticated or complex the solution is, the more likely it is to be accurate and correct, and therefore more attractive. It tends to affect more people who are in a position of proving themselves, which I think is also a symptom of being in HR. Sometimes either perceived or real, it feels like we're asked to prove ourselves in HR because of our lack of either bringing in tangible results to the business that we can show that brings the business money. I've heard the thing tossed around a few times that are kind of a cost. What am I? Stripes or stripes again? All right, that we cost the business money. So I think we're in a position of proving ourselves, which means we're being more likely to think up complex solutions.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back. It's funny. It's almost like full circle goes back, because I think if we start, one of the things we mentioned at the beginning is other, parts of the business are more data orientated, so they may be able to prove the impact more easily or more readily, and it kind of comes back full circle. Yeah. Maybe in the absence of having the data, what we're maybe doing is overcomplicating things to make it seem like it's impactful. Whereas if we simplify things, get the data and measure impact, we're in a better position. Yeah.
And I think just to break it down real simply, and the most HR initiatives involve people doing things, right? So there's a participation or an engagement metric. If you have a program, then you need people to do it, and whether it's writing their names down, attendance, writing the names of the people who came along to something, who completed something, who did something, who were involved in, who were engaged in some degree, then that's an amazing measurement to have. In fact, that's just it's absolute gold. And going back to starting a health and wellbeing program, I used to write people's name down on a sheet who came along to activities, who came along to learning sessions, who completed or did something, and made sure that those that are as painstaking as it was is committed to data entry, because I knew it was going to serve the program and the purpose of the program well, which is why you need to give a shit in the beginning and give it a crack, because things can be a bit tough.
I love it, even if you look at it from a grassroots perspective. You started with the 5K, you've invested it. Your first sign of success is, does anyone actually care enough to attend? And I like, as you say, the simple measurement of that is, do people care enough to attend? Well, did they turn up?
Yeah, exactly. But the gold comes in what you can do with that. So you've got participation data right there, and if you just think you can break down, your employee portion or population rather into groups. Over time you'll have people who participate lots, people who don't participate, and people who participate sometimes. So you've got your cohorts there. You've got your different cohorts. Yeah. And you can make that binary. You can make it people who don't participate and people who do, right? But you've got two separate groups, and when you've got two separate groups, then you can do correlation or correlative analysis. So you've got the people who do stuff and the people who don't do stuff, or the people who do heaps, people who do a bit, and people who do nothing. And with those three groups, you can then aggregate the people and then correlate other data. So whatever else that you want to have a look at, is it productivity, sick leave, turnovers, employee satisfaction, whatever data measures that you have in your organisation, and then average, or then have a look at what the relationship is between those groups and those measures. And right there, you can hypothesize the impact that you're having. So it's correlative analysis. It's not actually the showing a direct impact, but it is an indicator of your program's success. So you can then say that the people who are involved in these initiatives are, and usually basic science prevails here, and that those who take an interest or who care more about something that the company's offering, or who invest certain time into well-being, learning, or whatever it happens to be, have a more positive relationship with the things that you're likely measuring or looking to impact from a people and culture perspective. And then from there, you can build and build and build and become more complex after that. But it does not take very long to put names of people into a spreadsheet or into a database, and then have a look at that from a first instance. And right there, you're outperforming a lot of people who have health and wellbeing programs already.
Yeah.
You're probably outperforming the market, and you're proving that health and wellbeing is having an impact. And then, of course, when it comes to making mistakes, or when it comes to figuring further things out, and you've got what you need to kind of really invest in that continuous improvement model. You'll know who is going, who is turning up, and who isn't, and then you can work on convincing those groups to join different and better buckets.
Yeah.
So those who aren't doing anything, can they just try? And those who have tried a little bit, can they go there more often? And that's where a lot of kind of techniques and strategies can come in. And that's where the marketing helps out. And that's where understanding behaviour and recognition and incentivization and other elements that you can rely on for that. But in terms of measurement, you've got a huge run on the board.
I love it. You know, what you're describing there is, you know, that experimental design. We're trying to create this experiment. We put people into groups.
Yeah.
In your instance, the example is, you could quite easily do that by those that attend and those that don't. Let's compare and contrast some of the differences. And we build from there, you know. Hopefully we get some positive indicators of the initiatives working well. Well, that hopefully means we can secure more budget and make it a little bit bigger, and then we can make things a little bit more sophisticated. But to get started, it doesn't have to be super complicated, but we still need to be proving something using data. That's going to be one of our most effective avenues to grow what we're trying to do more. Or, you know, I think there's no, and I guess this happens a lot in the world of science as well. You know, people are always trying to prove something, but sometimes if something doesn't work, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You've learned what doesn't work, and you don't spend any more money on that thing. So
totally, and that's again when what I mean. But when things fuck up, then keep going. Is like, use it as a learning. Like nothing disengages people more than seeing the company have a crack and then pulling out at the first sign of failure. You know, when it's actually meaningful. Oh, we gave that a try, you know, but decided it wasn't. You know, it didn't work after one thing. Yeah. And then the other thing that kind of gets in the way as well is that nirvana fallacy. You know, like a kind of, I don't know if you call it a logical fallacy. But it's people thinking that if it isn't perfect, then they won't give it a try at all. Yeah. And it's like, well, they can't get the sophistication, or they can't get the right budget, or they can't get the new technology that's going to deliver
what's the
this.
Point?
And
let's just do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. You can still do things like far out. Like the people who've been doing things for hundreds of years in this area that haven't had any of the things. So interesting.
Yeah, super interesting. And something, if we kind of go further down this path of measurement, what are some of the... Because sometimes this stuff is not clear-cut either, you know. There might be an initiative we're running here, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff the organisation's doing, there's stuff that's happening, you know, elsewhere that's having an influence on someone's behaviour or not, you know. There are other external factors at play. Are there any tips around kind of... cleaning up the measurement so we can be a little bit more confident with some of the predictions we're making? Do you have any tips from your experience there?
So good, like cleaning up the measurement. So just having, all right, yeah. I mean, there's better ways to measure things for sure. Yeah. I think what's going to, I'll maybe give an example of how I had a kind of long-term commitment to try and to get into a predictive territory with employee experience. So this is this might be a bit of a long answer, but I think hopefully it gives some good gives some good advice. And I'm on the black ball here, so forgive me if I'm a little bit distracted. I'm just getting really excited about the chance of winning. I'm gonna try and hit the ball off.
It's a tricky shot as well. It's not an easy shot. Oh, he's gone for the double.
Nah.
You might have.
I've snookered you into a little bit, though. So
you could say that was intentional.
To give me more time and thinking about this answer. But I had this need, and I think a lot of organisations are in a similar boat here, because like we seem to measure employee engagement, you know, kind of well. Yeah. In a sense that most of us are kind of got this annual survey that we pop out, and then a whole bunch of actions happen, and then we try to improve things, and then a year, 12 months later, we do the same again. And when it comes from when you look at things from an employee experience lens, it's like, are you actually measuring the things that matter, and are you asking the right questions at the right time? So it never kind of sat well with me that employee engagement is the actual solution to measuring the experience. So I was like, this isn't right. So actually plotted out what the life cycle was in this organisation. Decided, like, what is the actual life cycle? What are the key kind of moments? Can we plot this out? Can we see what happens, and can we ask the right questions at the right time? So when people are actually at that part of the experience, or they're kind of at that stage in the life cycle, can we ask them what they think about it there and then? Like an example of, why do we keep asking people whether they were satisfied with what their pay is when they fucking leave the organisation? We ask them, and we ask these great questions in the exit interview. It's like, where was this knowledge fucking 6 months ago, dipshit, when I was actually struggling? Yeah, when I wasn't coping, and it's kind of, you could have kept me. And if the name of the game is, with employee experience, is to give a great experience so people do their best, and they want to stay. You retain top talent. Then why are we asking people once a year how engaged they are, and why are we asking great questions at the end? Like, come on.
So I love it, because one of the things I really like here is challenging because I would agree. I think the default is, let's do this annual, by whatever it is, frequency, but the survey generally is fairly static. Yes, sometimes we add in a couple of extra questions, but it's generally pretty static. So I like what you're saying here is challenging the notion. Does it have to be so static, or can you plot things out and ask more relevant questions at the right time and try and get that proximity as close as possible?
Yeah. And I mean, it's good arguments for doing it that way. You don't want to bug people. You don't want to be a pain in the ass, all throughout the year by multiple surveys. So I get that. And then also, how well are leaders equipped? Are you going for the spin on this one? I like it.
I thought I'd try it out, actually. I've been meaning to do it. I thought the break's the easiest part to try.
I mean, the other argument is that leaders need time to consider and take action. It takes a while. And I was like, well, actually, the reason for that is that it takes so frigging long to analyse the results that it takes a long time to actually make action. And then by the time that action is taken, is it actually even the right action anymore? Like, you're responding to how people were thinking and feeling, 3 months ago, by the time you actually get down to doing anything. So anyway, it was a big challenge, and I was like, look, I reckon we could do this better. And I reckon that we can give leaders meaningful insights so that they can then take action when it actually matters, and we can actually get a good gauge on where how are people are feeling about things in the moment. And we can probably do it cyclically. We can probably be collecting data all of the time so that we can understand seasonally how things impact our people. So, how well did we do in the remuneration stage? Well, we actually look at our data around July and August after that news has been delivered, and then see if it actually differs to the previous months and the months following. Like, does it have an impact? So we worked out these different stages, made sure we asked the right questions, make sure we weren't being a pain in the arse by asking people just a couple of questions, not 20 to respond to, but 2 or 3 questions every 2 months. That was actually less than what typical engagement survey was. So we're annoying people less. Started to collect the relevant information, and then of course after that you get a split of your promoters, you get a split of your detractors. So you see who's happy about certain parts of the stages and who isn't. So that was great just to have that view all of the time, rolling throughout the year. So it didn't matter what fortnight you looked at the dashboards, you can have a look at it and say, how is life at our company right now? The CEO has just given a town hall. What's the response like? Let's go on here. We've just updated the strategy. We've given it an uplift. What's the response like? You're not constantly having to do PIRs or labour-intensive kind of surveys. So great thing there is you can relate parts of the employee experience to what I previously mentioned about correlative analysis. When people are happy about this part of the experience, what's the relationship like with sick leave, productivity, and turnover?
Yeah.
And then you can actually, once you know how the happy people are saying, sort of the things that are making people happy most consistently are these things, and then of course the unhappier people, what's really dragging or pulling them down. and you get an opportunity to influence the result, to influence the actual outcome, particularly if you know it has a strong relationship to things like turnover. If you want to actually, if you think turnover is an issue in your organisation, then you've got the information that you have to actually change it, because we know what the happy people are thinking, we know what the unhappy people are thinking. We've got this opportunity. So that's a really good step. The next step is to take action. Like, what are we actually going to do about it? And when you're having a workplace intervention, I strongly encourage that you measure, or rather you take note of what the intervention is. So, like, action plans would be the typical way of doing this. So someone is trying to influence this result. How are they trying to influence it? What are they doing? When are they doing it? And then measure whether it actually had an impact. Yeah. And if you can do that at scale throughout the whole organisation, what you'll have is a bunch of information about what leaders or what the organisation is doing to mitigate, eliminate an issue. And then that is essentially measuring the effectiveness of corrective action throughout the whole organisation. Yeah. So if things are going wrong, you've got a whole list of the ways that people have tried to correct it, and then you have a list of things that were successful and a list of things that weren't. So then you can get into really good recommendations for when those things start to happen again, and that gets you super close to predictive territory. If you can effectively understand which direction a trend is going, and what corrected it the last time, then you can give leaders recommendations early, and then you get out of the reactive and into the proactive space. So can you use data to help you get there? Well, fucking yes, you can. Yeah. You can use the data to say, this type of thing was happening the last time, and here's what helped other leaders. And if you can do that part correctly, if you can get really good at studying the trends, then you get into prevention, and then you get into prediction, which is a really good space to be in. And that's where we got all throughout, just trying to say, how do we improve the way we collect data? How do we improve the way that we manage the data? How do we improve the way that we collect more data, i.e. the leadership interventions, so that we can then learn from it, and then again use data to get us into a predictive state. So like, once you've got that mentality of continuous improvement, then you get to take those leaps a little quicker, because you're having to less figure it out. You're just constantly thinking, all right, what do we know? How can we improve this? What do we know? How can we improve this? What do we know? How can we improve this? And that's how you get there, and it doesn't take long.
Like, what a super answer, and also a super run that you just had at the pool. I don't know how you did both at the same time. Gave the most. No one knows if they just.
I'm just glad that you're filming this, because I can prove that I can multitask.
Yeah. You gave the most elaborate answer ever while just cleaning up on the table. That's impressive on two parts. Well done. But so many things popping to my mind. I think the first is just really questioning. I think obviously. Surveys, engagement surveys, for many organisations are the starting point of measuring. But I think I love what you're saying here, is really question, what are you asking, when are you asking it? And I really like the second part, which is, as well as the survey, what are some of the other bits of data and outcomes we expect to change? So let's not just rely only on the survey. Let's not just say, hey, we're investing in career development, and let's wait 3 months to see if the career development measure changes. Let's go, what are some of the other things we
It reminds me of an episode. I don't know if you ever watched South Park, but I do. I watched it when, like I think a lot when I was in high school. And there's this episode where we talk about the underpant gnomes. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one. Great shot.
All right. Anyway, it's like these. I think went down into a rabbit hole of why the undies keep going missing, right? And effectively, there was these underpant gnomes that would come in, steal your undies, and take them back to wherever they lived. But the underpant gnomes got confronted, and they had a 3-step process for profit. And they were like, how are you doing this? And it was like, step 1, collect the underpants. Step 2, step 3, profit. And it was like, what? Say that again. And then kind of goes into the jokes, like, kind of repeat it. But I was like, that is so like the way people measure stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, I'll measure it, and we'll improve. Right, sweet. What are you doing? Well, I'm measuring it. And then what do you do? And then we improve. Like, it's like this thing. It's like, no, wait a minute, you actually have to do shit. There's a whole bunch of stuff in the middle, like taking action and kind of figuring out what it is to do, trying it, and it kind of gets a bit forgotten. And that's a little bit of a bone I have to pick with a lot of employee measuring tools that are out there. is I've spoken to multiple people now, particularly since being out on my own, and certain HR leaders have the belief that they are taking action when all they're doing is measuring. And it really annoys me, because a lot of the material and the content that's written by these powerful and seems like market dominating software solutions is putting content out there saying, if you want to improve well-being, read our white paper and then buy our technology. So people read the white paper. Cool, that makes sense. They buy the technology. And then it seems like, well, I've kind of read the white paper that says this is how I improve well-being, and then I've bought the technology and I'm measuring it now, and it's like they've got this belief. You're like trying to talk to them, and I've spoke with other people who have kind of solution-focused software, and it's like, well, are you struggling to get clients at the moment? Yeah, I'm struggling to get clients because everyone seems to frigging believe they're doing this already, when all they're doing is actually measuring it, and it's like, well, that's so weird. I wonder how that happened. Because because I think people have got a belief, because they've read a lot of this content that comes out there, that they've got it sorted, because that's what the content promises to deliver and doesn't actually deliver it.
And doesn't actually cause the meaningful change. Yeah.
It should give people a kick in the arse, but it's not the Kool-Aid that they're drinking.
No, and I like, a lot of the things you've talked about. I think it is just about getting much more hands-on with these things. So it's just getting more hands-on. Getting what are the things we're trying to change? Yes, the score's one part, but that's not the reason we're doing it. The reason we're doing it is probably there's other things that we're hoping to measure. And I like, you talked about the well-being example earlier. You had some amazing outcomes there about people feeling more satisfied with their work, suffering less injury. So many. They're the reasons you're doing the initiatives, not just to improve your engagement score. That's not the actual end. That's not really the end outcome. And so the other part I quite liked, going back to your previous response as well. You spoke what you're talking about, being more intentional about what we ask, when we ask it, more real time. And the other piece that was quite interesting is also then thinking a little bit about, well, what are all the things that maybe do impact people and culture? And they can even be things like a all hands or a town hall. And actually starting to think about, well, what influence does this have? Because if we can show that this has a big impact on people's sentiment. And I think this is a lot of the stuff you talk about is stuff that, again, is done in marketing a lot. Things like sentiment analysis and whatever else. But if we can start measuring sentiment and impact of things like that, we can pick the moments that are going to be the highest impact, which I think is a really cool way of looking at it. And so the question I've got then is, from your experience, has there been ever like a really surprising thing that you've gone, this thing which we thought was like a small thing actually has quite a big knock-on impact towards how people are feeling, their productivity, the customer experience they deliver? Have there been any kind of quirky things which you've gone, this is pretty neat? And,
Yeah, and I think it's actually something that will resonate a lot with your philosophy, Viren, and a lot of the work that you do as well, because we ran a health and wellbeing program, right? It was the best. I think it was the best in the world. Like this was when I worked at UE Insurance. It was just phenomenal, right? And we did 342 events a year. It was and high participation, was making a real impact. And we measured absolutely everything that we'd done and this impact on it, to the point where we were able to look at certain activities and see, well, what impact is this activity or this type of activity having on our people. And we did fitness, a lot of fitness stuff. We did a lot of mental health training, literacy. We did financial literacy, confidence. We did a lot of info sessions. When it came to the entire health model, there was barely something. It was really nothing that we didn't do. But when we measured stuff, the thing that was having the most impact was something we did called like fun and learning. So the what was involved there was taking people, which I think it was a call center we're working in, which is largely sedentary environment. A lot of the work is scripted. You have to follow what's said on the screen. I keep potting the wrong ball or something. I potted one and it gave you. I think I'm doing you favours here. That's how much I like you.
It says I'm
I'm not sure.
No, I think I'm Stripes. We've had the classic confusion here of who's who. I think I just hit your ball first. And
okay. I just potted one.
Oh, thank you. I needed the help. So there we go. But I'm back on track now. Yeah, sorry. So you were saying there's you're looking at the context
fun and learning.
Fun and learning.
And basically half-hour sessions that we used to run that were just about fun and learning. So the things that we done there was guitar lessons, language lessons, and we went into half-hour classes on learning any particular language. It could be Portuguese, Afrikaans, Swahili, the Maori. Did a lot of different languages. There was cupcake decorating. There was cooking classes. It's basically something fun, creative that you can go on. Fun, creative, and learning based. You can go in and pick something up that you probably didn't know or hadn't given a crack before, and you got to learn. And you went back to work. Well, that was those types of events and activities were the ones that had the strongest and the most positive relationship with reduction of leave, with improvement of employee satisfaction, and also turnover, as well as various other measures. We also measured the impact that employee experience was having on customer experience. So we knew that anything that was impacting employee sentiment or satisfaction was directly linked to our customer satisfaction scores as well.
How cool.
So it was showing that if someone had a good, again, this is like basic stuff. If someone's just having a good day, then they're more likely to help others have a good experience. I don't think it's more complicated than that. Somehow it needs to be for people that you have to measure things for. But a lot of people keep using that statement. I just potted one again, and did I pot your ball
again? Thank you. Yeah, you're feeling sorry for me.
Potted,
so this is all you're having a good day. So you're helping me out. This is what you're doing. You're delivering good.
That's what it is. Yeah, exactly. I'm actually illustrating.
You're illustrating the
metaphor. This game. Liverpool's a metaphor. Get what I was saying. And a lot of people keep saying those things but don't measure it at their workplace. And I know it's obvious, but it does you a world of good if you measure that at your workplace. So essentially just overlay your employee perceptive data with your customer experience data.
Yeah.
So and you can do it in an aggregate form, or you can do it in averages, or you can ask someone to help you do it once and do it well, and then you can use that around your workplace. Why should we invest in this initiative, or why should we do this thing, or why is it that we need people's time for this thing, or why is it that we should we should care about this? Well, we've measured this in our workplace, not just taking it as some Richard friggin' Branson quote and put it into a slide deck, which everyone does, but we've actually measured it in our workplace. We've shown that there is a direct relationship between how our people feel and how our customers feel. The people who are interacting with our customers, on average, their employees' sentiment score or the engagement score is this. Those who are higher, those who are the promoters, also show that their customers have a higher satisfaction score with our product or service, whatever it happens to be. And I've measured this lots of different places in lots of different ways, and the data usually says what you think it will say, and it's so useful to have around the organisation.
But but I still like the fact that you could, the example you just shared there, it would still even challenge. Like, I often will. I will often diminish a little bit some of the lighter team type activities. I'll say that I feel like sometimes they maybe have less impact, but it's great hearing then your contrary opinion, where when you look at the data and actually link it back to people are having a good day, they're having fun, even if it's these lighter activities, there's still a good knock-on impact of doing these things. So again, this just shows the value of having some data that helps challenge maybe preconceptions we have, it helps us have a productive discussion around what is this data telling us, what's the impact of some of these initiatives, what should we continue to invest in, what should we not invest as much in. So there's some really great stuff. Even when something I think maybe seems, in hindsight, can seem a little bit more obvious, it's great having the data to back up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the ask that question, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And it all, I guess part of it just requires us to think a little bit more about the data side up front, and being more, as you say, just giving it a crack and being a bit more upfront and not afraid of the data piece, and it'll offer us a lot of value. So I guess to take us to the home stretch, how do you see this space of measurement evolving? So this is probably the trickiest one, because things change so fast in this world. But where do you see the future kind of measurement? What do you see? Is it like a technology thing? Is it a mindset thing? Or is there something else you think is kind of coming up that you're really excited about in the kind of measurement space that relates to people and culture? What's kind of getting you excited at the moment from the...
Look, I think definitely it's a mindset thing because and I think that comes from confidence. So we kind of, I think, oh no, the black on the last. So I think we know we need to prioritise this, but I don't think there's enough prioritisation in terms of our use of data. So I think what's going to improve people's confidence is their capability. And I think what's preventing people from being capable is confidence. And so I think it goes both ways, right? But I think why we aren't taking as much action in this space is because we aren't prioritising it. So I'm excited about the kind of the way in which we're talking about data and the way we're beginning to understand that there's a greater need for it, because I think that improves the likelihood that we're going to invest in our data literacy or our data confidence. And I've seen some really good examples. I think there was a council in Singapore who actually done this recently, where they paid for everyone in the whole organisation to do data literacy courses, because they felt that there was if they looked at the organisation, there was everywhere you looked, everyone could benefit from having a better understanding of data. So they had a tiered approach, and they invested a huge amount, and they made sure that at frontline, mid-level, senior management, they all went through different style of courses relevant to their seniority or hierarchy in the business, but everyone was going to do data literacy.
I love that. This is a core skill. We believe this is essential no matter what your job is. Being able to understand data, use data, measure the impact of what you're doing is key. So blanket, we think everyone needs to do this. Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm excited about things like that happening, because I think you can, particularly in the people and culture space, because we're maybe a little bit behind, and I think we can take huge leaps forwards in not a lot of time.
Yeah. So you really just the return on effort is really high if we just prioritise it and put more effort into it.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess the last question I have for you brings us back full circle. You know, I started off with asking what's been a recent highlight. What are you kind of looking forward to most in the next few weeks, months? Again, professional, personal, anywhere in between. What's kind of on your radar that you're personally excited about?
Oh, geez, what have we got? The lead up to Christmas. That's what's happening at the moment. So my daughter's 4.5, and she turns 5 on her first day of school. So her first day of school, being kind of late January, and I'm excited, like, over the next few months to spend like as much time as I can with her, because she's going off to school. You know, she's going to be a big girl 5 days a week at school. So like I'm really looking forward to trying to be as conscious and intentional as I can with spending as much time with her. So I think it's scary when I look at the number of weeks that there are. I know some people, you know, are motivated by positive things, others motivated by fear. That one for me is a fear motivation. Yeah. It's like,
time is just going.
I need to spend a lot of time's going away. We'll get 9, 10, 12 weeks. So yeah, I'm going to spend heaps of time with her.
I love it. It is such a big big milestone. Then stepping into school, it's a totally different ball game. So it's I love that that's your kind of focus, is that just before school, getting as much quality time into those preschool years. That's super. Ryan, I've loved our chat. I loved playing pool with you. That was actually the pool was it went surprisingly well. It was
so. Obviously, what happens here, because no one won at pool, there was 2 apiece.
Yes.
What goes on?
I think in the spirit of data, I'll just go straight down the line. I think we'll give you a 1.5% boost on the charity payment. But I've really loved the chat. I think it's such an interesting topic. I love the pragmatic approach you've taken. I think there's so many cool examples in there of how to make progress in this space and things to think about. And also I like how you've kind of pushed the needle on how we think about some of these things as well during our chat. So it's been awesome fun chatting and playing pool with you, and hopefully soon we'll be able to do this in person with a beer and a real pool table. Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, brilliant. Thanks again, mate.
Thanks, Ryan, or Rory.
Rory, yeah. I was actually going to change my name to the Irish and the Gaelic spelling of my name to and then I realised people wouldn't be able to say it properly because a lot of really kind of it's very difficult to read.
Yeah.
But then my name's the anglicised version. People still get it wrong, so
you can't win. You can't win.
Yeah.
Awesome to have you on, mate. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.
See you later. Bye bye.